is a bucket with a metal spile.
Awesome.
Okay? This is more or less a very new method that's been used, only since the early 80s.
How everything works.
All
right, okay.
Where what we do is we collect sap through tubing down to a main bucket, main tank, versus individual buckets per tree.
And they give her just, what do you call it?
Spiles.
Spiles.
How's this year been, considering the wacky weather we've had?
It was off for a good start, but now it's warmed up.
It is quicker, but then it's the time-consuming aspect of having to collect all those buckets every day. We run tubing all the way down to the road, put it in one giant tank. So we can collect 200 taps. Instead of having 200 buckets, we have 200 taps with one tank, one pickup.
Compared to last year,
Right.
But the southern part of the state had it here, so it's like,
That's what it's doing.
it's like divided, like,
Okay.
northern.
So from there, we collect that sap, we bring it here, and we pump it up into the tank behind us that you can't see. And from that point until it reaches this float box, where it establishes a float level within the back pan,
and green grass and stuff, so that's pretty much.
that is a gravity from the tank to here. Anything beyond this float box through the back pan is what they've done since the beginning of time, which is nothing more than the evaporation of water out of the sap in order to create a high concentration of sugar. So we're taking sap that typically has been running this year at around 2% sugar content by volume, and by the time it runs through the rear pan and drops into the front pan, you're looking at a concentration of 12% sugar by volume. And by the time it runs through the serpentine affair in the front, where it exits here as maple syrup, it goes from 12% to 69% sugar.
Now, what's the highest level of sugar content have you had before it reaches?
Before it starts in, we've seen levels out of the trees of 3 to 3.5%. Highly unusual. Average has been 2. We will see trees that will produce sugar contents of only 1%, a half a percent.
Do the same trees produce the same amount of sugar content each year? Does it vary?
It varies.
And what makes it vary?
That's all based on the environment.
Probably 1 year over a good year.
You got to have the perfect 20-degree night, 40-degree day. So when you
Sugar content.
the sap comes out of the tree roots at night during the day, goes up into the branches. At night, it travels back down the tree into the root system. And you've got to have that cycling back and forth in order for the tree to basically get rejuvenated. And sugar contents will vary from day to day and from season to season, based upon weather, environmental. So, once we get to what we believe is maple syrup, we're looking for a couple of indications. This is a maple sugar gauge. 0 represents 212 degrees. Our target that we're shooting for is 7 degrees above boiling, or 219. Once we get to 219, that's an indication that we believe we're at maple syrup. But to test it,
They've been all right.
we will take
the grade that's doing it. And,
we will take a hydrometer and float it in a cylinder of maple syrup.
Yeah.
Pretty soon you have your.
And on a hot test, we are looking for a hot test of what they call 59 bricks, which is around 69% sugar concentration. And once we're at that level, we now know we have maple syrup. We will draw off into the container through the diaper.
Yeah. It's awesome to have it there. It is. It's been great.
And just when you thought we were totally through with it, we will then take and we will pump it through this filter press. And what the filter press does is it filters all of the niter and sugar sand from the maple syrup to give you 100% pure maple syrup with no sediment. And once it exits and goes into the finishing pan itself, we will then reheat it. We will test it again for density with a hydrometer.
Right.
We will draw off a cylinder of maple syrup to be able to determine its proper grade. And when we say proper grade, we want to determine from color what we're going to affix for a label.
I see this all the time. Give me an example of what you would.
Well, what we're going to do here is if you put this up to the light.
Oh wow.
What you want to do is you want to determine what color your batch that just came off is against the standard grade. And that will determine what label is affixed to the product.
What would you consider to be the standard?
Well, the standards are a light, a medium, a dark, and a grade B. And so what we're doing is we're going to take what we've just done against the standards to determine what label will be affixed to the container.
Yep.
Light fancy syrups are more sugary, and as you get to medium and dark, they become more mapley in flavor and more robust.
Is there any one that's more desirable than another in terms of flavor?
I think it's more personal preference. If you like a sugary syrup that has a hint of maple, then you prefer the light fancy. If you prefer a really robust flavor, then you're going to want to go for the dark, so the grade B. Grade B typically used for cooking. Great in homemade baked beans. Oh my. So depending upon what your preference is and what you like, you know, if I personally, if I want to do, if I'm going to have maple syrup on anything or in anything, I want to taste the maple.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go for the darker syrups.
Interesting. Now, how long can you typically tap the syrup? How long do you tap the tree?
Trees, depending upon the season, can be tapped. We've gone as little as a week, and we've gone as long as 5 weeks, depending upon the length of the season. The season is going to be dictated by environmental, again. When the trees have decided that spring is over and they're getting into the summer season, and you start to see the buds start to appear, the bud sap, the sap starts to change, because sap itself, typically, early in the season, is extremely clear. It has a light green hue about it. And when the sap starts to convert itself to bud sap, it starts to take from a light green hue to a cloudy green hue to yellow, to dark yellow, to brown. And when you start to get into the yellows and the browns, season's over. You've made the sap has converted itself to a bud sap. And it smells, you don't want to be around it. You don't want to be sampling it. The times have been fluctuating because spring has done some really strange things. This year, first time in history, we first got sap. We always tap our trees very early anyway, but February 23rd was our first month. We've never gone to sap out of the tree in the month of February. So, extremely early. We have never finished the sugar season in the month of March. We've always gone into mid-April, and this year we may be ending early.
How about how much you're going to use that?
We've been fortunate. I mean, the rest of New Hampshire says it's been a horrible season, and for us, it's been a great season. We've made more this year than we did last year. Last year was a very difficult year for us, where southern New Hampshire had an extendedly long season. We had a season that lasted about 2 weeks. Yeah, it was over before we even got started. Wow. Are we?
Good, how are you? Just listening. Oh, I monopolized the last 15 minutes here.
No.
Now, do you lease the trees?
No, all these locations that are listed there are property owners who have graciously allowed us to tap their trees for free. So what we do in return is we return the favor by giving them free maple syrup. I mean, I think that's the least we can do, in as much as they are their trees.
And how many trees do you have?
We're just under 1,000 right now.
And how many do you have? How many people?
Correct. But it's been a very minimal amount of help. I mean, that's what's been.
The tapping's not too bad because it's come a long way. You get the cordless drills. Just go along. Still, a lot of territory.
A lot of territory. I mean,
So when you said cordless, so you're just gonna drill the hole?
Drill the hole. Set. Yeah, we set a what they call a spile extension. So we will we'll drill the 5/16 hole. We'll insert a spile extension into the tree, tap it in, and then we will take the spile and we will quarter turn lock into that, creating a perfect seal. So as product runs, and we use what they call a closed loop system where all of our trees are tapped, we use gravity to create a natural vacuum on the tree with the tubing system. So as trees run, they produce sap, they put sap in the tube. For that tube to run, there has to be something else coming out of that tree, otherwise the product isn't going to go anywhere. So what it does is it has a natural vacuum on the tree to encourage a tree to give up sap.
How long did you take to
Could be the same day. We had a case where we were in a new orchard, and while we were tapping, we were actually running new lines and tapping. Trees were running as we were tapping.
And how about the age of the trees?
We want trees that are a minimum of 8 inch in diameter, and age, we're going to look for what we want to do is size doesn't really matter, doesn't necessarily dictate whether the tree is going to be a really good running tree or not. We'll look at the basic canopy of the tree to see from a health standpoint how good it looks. And if it appears as though it's older trees, obviously the larger trees, we're gonna a lot of people will say larger, you can tap more. We have a tendency not to do that. We'll tap trees that are extremely large, where you could put 4 taps, we'll only do 2. Because we want to preserve and protect the tree, because we want it next year.